I think it's really clear to everybody by now that this is not going to be over quickly, that we are engaged in a marathon, not a sprint. There is the overarching goal here of toppling authoritarianism and restoring our democracy. And we are working on building the resistance and increasing everybody's skill set and involvement to a place where we can ultimately be successful in that. And I truly believe that we will be. We have no choice but to be successful. But within that, there are also underneath all of these smaller little skirmishes. They're not little, they're hugely impactful in people's lives. But we've got to stop the really big harm, but at the same time, all of these smaller harms are actively being carried out. And there's so many good people and organizations that are working to fight all of these little battles, to protect individual lives, communities, to make sure that we can reduce the suffering whenever possible. And I think it's so important that we draw attention to those. And while what they may be doing may not ultimately be accomplishing this greater goal, all of that work is still really necessary. We all have to be engaged in defending our neighbors and making sure that we are taking care of each other. This regime does not care about working class Americans. It doesn't care about disabled people and veterans and children and the elderly. It doesn't care about immigrants and any vulnerable group, but we do. We do. That's what sets us apart from them. We believe in human rights for all. We believe in the dignity of all people. We believe in caring for our neighbors. And so we've got to fight these smaller battles. We've got to do what we can to mitigate the harm, to reduce the suffering. And so we really need to acknowledge all of the small wins, all of the ways that we are impactful in pushing back against the horrors that this regime wants to roll out. We need to congratulate ourselves. We need to honor those small victories. And so I want to point to something, not only because it's a small victory, but because I think there's a greater lesson in it. So you may have heard that the Social Security Administration stopped all phone service, right? They said, you no longer can resolve your issues over the phone. You must come into the office. Someone at my Indivisible group earlier in March said, what about my 87-year-old dad who's blind and can't drive? How is it that he's supposed to get to the Social Security office to resolve every problem? And Social Security workers were like, we don't have the staff for this. This is going to result in people not being able to get an appointment, huge long lines. And that was the goal of that, right? Was to gum up Social Security, to make it inaccessible, to screw up your Social Security payments. And then you can't fix it unless you go into the office and have an appointment and have them solve it in person. But they're so backed up that you can't get an appointment for months and months and months and months, if you even can. Right? The plan was if they couldn't outright dismantle Social Security and steal your money, then they were going to make it non-functional so that you could not get your money. And then they're going to steal it. So there was a huge public outcry. People were calling their electeds saying, this cannot happen. We have to maintain phone service. This is how our seniors deal with issues at the Social Security Administration, is over the phone. So because of a huge public outcry, on April 9th, the Social Security office backs off its cuts to phone services. This was published in Axios. After weeks of confusion and public outcry, the Social Security Administration is backing off its announced drastic cuts to phone services. Why it matters: the changes would have strained an already backlogged agency and possibly kept eligible Americans from receiving their benefits. They were going to cut phone services starting on Monday. Instead, they just announced beginning April 14th, the Social Security Administration will allow all claim types to be completed over the phone. This includes retirement, survivors, and auxiliary, that's spouse and child benefits, that the SSA previously announced would require in-person identity proofing in addition to Social Security, disability, Medicare, and SSI. Now, the Trump regime is not claiming that they are backing off of these changes because of public outcry. No, they would not do that. Instead, they're saying it's because the anti-fraud team implemented new technological capabilities so quickly that the SSA can now perform anti-fraud checks on all claims filed over the phone. They are claiming that if your account gets flagged for abnormal behavior, that you are going to have to come into the office. It's important to note here, and Axios mentions this as well, that Social Security fraud is really minimal. It's a very minor problem compared to the huge amount of disruption that was going to hit at least 38 million older Americans if they made these changes. The expense of the disruptions and people not getting their Social Security benefits would be far greater than any amount of money they were going to save by the very few people they maybe would have found committing Social Security fraud. Let's not forget, this is the same regime that claimed that people who are long dead are receiving benefits. it's because they don't understand what survivorship benefits are, and that if you're a child and your parent dies, you can get Social Security benefits. It's not the dead person who's receiving the benefits, it's the survivorship benefits. But Elon Musk and his band of Shitler youth have never cared about accuracy or reporting factual information. It's also worth noting that Musk announced that all communication from the Social Security Administration will now be conducted over Twitter. Right, because most retirees use Twitter. And also because, let's be real, Musk's platform is floundering, right? People are fleeing Twitter and going to Blue Sky and using other social media platforms. Nobody wants to be on Twitter. I said Twitter. Okay, but nobody wants to be on Twitter because it's a Yahtzee hellscape. So that portmanteau works perfectly. So he's trying to force people to get on Twitter to keep his platform viable. And also just in general, make it harder for seniors, folks on disability, folks who access Social Security in any way, shape, or form to get the information that they need. But this is one win, and I think it is really important that we acknowledge that it is public outcry. It is people calling their electeds and pushing their electeds to act that got phone services restored. It actually really does matter that you contact your representatives and your senators. It really matters. This is a perfect illustration of the fact that the power truly lies with the people. And if we get pissed off enough and loud enough, they will buckle, they will cave. So we need to be doing it on everything. Any little victory that we have, I think, needs to be a reminder to us that ultimately they're scared of us. Ultimately, they don't want us exercising our power, because when we do, they have to back down. A huge public resistance, massive pushback from voters, resounding public outcry, it still works. I'll keep quoting Senator Cory Booker, "The power of the people is greater than the people in power." Every little victory along the way needs to be honored because it is proving that fact. And it's showing us if we can do it little here and here and here and here and here, we can do it big as well.